Sometimes having darshan could be a very ritualistic thing. You know, I have seen. Like that. But actual darshan is to be seen. To present oneself to Krishna in such a way that Krishna is pleased to see us. When we are really, really happy to see Krishna in a spirit of surrender, then Krishna is pleased to see us. That is true darshan. So yes, Lord Chaitanya, he was surrendering his body, mind, his words, his life. He was offering it to Srinathji. And how did he do that? Through his prayer and through his kirtan. The whole time he was there, he was offering his prayers and he was chanting and dancing. He wasn't dancing and chanting just as some rule or regulation. He was chanting Krishna's name because he was offering his heart. He was offering his love when he was chanting. He was offering the very soul of his souls when he was dancing for the pleasure of Gopal. And he's teaching us. This is what darshan means, to come before the Lord with an eagerness to serve. And of all forms of service, to chant the holy names with great affection, humility, sincerity is the greatest way of pleasing Krishna. It's like Srila Prabhupada, when he was sitting in Tompkins Square Park or Washington Square Park or Hippie Hill in Golden Gate Park, wherever he was in those early days, when he would see all these hippies becoming happy because they were chanting Krishna's names, that made Prabhupada most happy. When he would see people chanting, when he would see people happy chanting the names and dancing, that gave him the greatest happiness. Because it was liberating our souls. It was connecting us to Radha Gopinath. So when we perform kirtan, we are doing so to please Krishna. And the more we have this consciousness, the more the holy name will reciprocate with us. And we will actually taste the nectar. And sometimes we may taste no nectar. It may taste bitter. We may not want to dance. We may not want to chant. And there's so many other things we'd rather do at this moment. But that's an optimum time to give pleasure to Krishna. Because at that moment we are choosing, okay, it's not giving me happiness, but it gives me happiness to make you happy, Krishna. Even if I'm not happy, it makes me happy to give you happiness because I'm your servant. That is love. So as they were carrying Srinathji back, Lord Chaitanya was still dancing in front of him and chanting until they came to where they climbed the hill. And then he stopped. And Gopal went to the top of the hill. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his dandavats. Did the parikrama. And Kaviraj Goswami tells us that years later, when Rupa Goswami was very old, it appears that Sanatana Goswami had already disappeared from this world. Rupa Goswami so much longed to see Gopal. He had been living in Braj Bhumi for so many decades. but he never saw Srinathji. Even though he knew Lord Chaitanya yearned, and he yearned. And what an important avatar of the Lord was Srinathji, the Purna avatar. He descended from the spiritual world in this form. But Rupa Goswami would not put his foot on Govardhan Hill. What was the nature of his love? He lived in Vrindavan for like 40 or 50 years. And Srinathji is so close, but he never went on the hill. He would do so many Govardhan parikramas. Sometimes he has a bhajan kutir at Radhakund, so close. But Gopal wanted to satisfy him in his old age. And Rupa Goswami, none of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas would go on the hill. So someone came to Anakut Kshetra and said, Turkish soldiers are coming. And please understand that it wasn't like the devotees sent somebody to do that. Because they would never, ever, ever want to disturb Gopal and have him have to come off his beautiful altar from his beautiful temple and come down the hill and be put into hiding. They would never, ever do something like that. But you see, these people who were coming were just common people who actually heard news like this. Where did they hear the news? Somehow or other, Gopal was spreading these rumors. Gopal was spreading false rumors just to please his devotees. So they brought Gopal down off the hill secretly and brought him to Mathura, where they kept him at the house of Vittaleshwar. He was the son of Sri Ballabhacharya. Ballabhacharya had two sons, Gopinath and Vittalnath. So Srinathji stayed at Vittalnath's house for 1 month. And it was very secret. But somehow or other, that secret was disclosed to Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami gathered so many of the other devotees to go to offer their hearts and their lives, in other words, to have darshan of Gopal. And they stayed there for practically the whole month, having kirtan, kathas, prayers, making offerings along with Vittaleshwar. You see, in those days, the Vaishnavas, they were one family. And so many devotees went there with him. Rupa Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Lokanath Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, and many others. Interestingly, in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was going to all the Vaishnavas to get their blessings to write this book, Lokanath Goswami told him, I will give my blessings if you will not speak my name or talk about me. Now, Lokanath Goswami was one of the most prominent people. He's the guru of Narottam Das Thakur. He was actually, of all the Goswamis, he and Bhugarbha Goswami were the first to come to Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally ordered Lokanath Goswami to go to Vrindavan before Rupa and Sanatan even came. Such a prominent devotee. There would have been chapters and chapters in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita about him. But he made promise, don't talk about me. But in this particular passage that we're speaking, where he gives a list of the names of the people, of the devotees who went to see Srinathji with Rupa Goswami, Lokanath Goswami's name is there. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami put his name in. He didn't say anything about him, he just put his name there. Hare Krishna. That makes me so happy. And there we were having a utsav for 1 month. So what was actually something very, very unfavorable became something completely favorable. Then a month passed, and they found out there's no Turkish soldiers. There's none anywhere around. So they brought Gopal back onto the mountain. Some years later, Jahnava Devi, the consort of Lord Nityananda, she came to Vrindavan. This was after Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya had already ended their earthly pastimes and returned to their eternal abodes in the spiritual sky. After the Keturi festival of Gaur Purnima, arranged by Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, Shyamananda Prabhu, Jahnava Devi took some of her associates to Vrindavan. A very, very historical visit. Rupa Goswami had already passed from this world. That means I'm supposed to end class. For those of you with cell phones, raise your hand if you happen somewhere in the world to have a cell phone. I'm just curious to see. Please raise your hands if you have a cell phone. Whoever didn't raise their hand probably do not understand English. But in class, when we hear a cell phone, we will interpret it as Krishna's way of telling us to end class. So one of two things, either turn your cell phones off, or if you're really tired, turn them on. So John, should I continue? Disregard the signal. When Jahnava Devi came to Vrindavan, Jiva Goswami and all, Lokanath Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, they were all there, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, to greet her. And she was told, actually Gopal Bhatta Goswami at that time was living in Sanket near Nandagram, and he came all the way to Vrindavan to meet her. And Raghava Pandit came all the way from Govardhan. Devotees were coming from all over Braj Bhumi just to honor Jahnava Devi. And they told her about Raghunath Das Goswami. Ever since Rupa Goswami left this world, Raghunath Das Goswami was in so much separation. We know the story, how he was the personal assistant of Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was the personal assistant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Raghunath Das Goswami was directly and indirectly the witness of practically all the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in Puri. Even when Lord Chaitanya was in Gambhira, with just Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar Goswami. He was getting all the Leela news from Swarup Damodar Goswami. Nobody else in creation knew. When they left, he went to Vrindavan with the idea of taking his life at Govardhan Hill. But Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they prayed to him, please stay with us and just tell us the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and make us happy. So he lived only for the pleasure of the devotees. And then Sanatana Goswami left, and Rupa Goswami left. What was the nature of these love between these devotees for each other? Raghunath Das Goswami is our Prayojan Guru. That means he's teaching us the highest, most intimate levels of ecstatic love for Krishna. He's manifesting to the world more than anyone the nature of the gopis' love. It's not that when Rupa Goswami left, Raghunath Das Goswami just said, oh, he's not his body. He's an eternal soul. Hare Krishna. He was feeling such separation. He practically stopped eating or drinking anything. He became emaciated and he was always crying. Because the body is the medium by which we can exchange love. And that body of Rupa Goswami was a medium by which Krishna's love was manifesting in this world unlimitedly. Raghunath Das Goswami knew that Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari, the most intimate, loving maidservant of Lalita Saki in the spiritual world of Goloka Vrindavan. But still, on this earthly level, he was feeling deep, deep separation. This is the love of the soul. The body is a medium, but the love is between the two souls, and there's a complete awareness of that. So they told Janavadevi about Raghunath Das Goswami's condition. She was so affected. She just came to Vrindavan. And she told the devotees, I want to go to see Raghunath Das Goswami. I must go to pacify him. They told her, he wanted so much to come and see you, but his physical health is so weak, he can't walk all this way. Then I will go to see him. The next day, she left for Govardhan. And as she was approaching, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ran to Raghunath Das Goswami and said, Janavadevi's coming. She's just close to Radhakund. He was sitting in a little thatched hut, Bhajan Kutir, and he was chanting the holy names of Krishna very slowly, very deeply, crying in tears of separation from Krishna and his devotees. And when he heard that Janava was close by, he became transcendentally blissful. And he stood up, and as fast as he could, he was walking toward Janavadevi. When Janavadevi saw Raghunath Das Goswami, how he was coming to meet her, her eyes flooded with tears. Her limbs trembled. And she went to Raghunath Das Goswami and bowed at his feet. And Narahari Chakravarti and Bhakti Ratnakar, he said, the words that they spoke to each other, Raghunath Das Goswami and Janavadevi, Ishwari, said they were so deep, they were so sweet, they were so intimate, that they cannot be spoken. So that's all I could say. Because we don't know. He said, someday they will be revealed to the world. Jhanavi Devi, she cooked bhoga, she offered it to Krishna, and then she invited all the Brijavasis to come, and she personally served them all prasad. And she made everyone so happy. In this way, she spent a couple days at Radhakund, 2-3 days. And there's a beautiful story. One day she was sitting alone. She heard the sweetest, most heart-enchanting sound of a flute. And she looked in all 4 directions. Where is this beautiful ambrosial nectarine flute song coming from? But she didn't see anything anywhere, and she kept looking around. Then she saw on the banks of Radha Kund, Sham Sundar, Gopinath standing in a beautiful threefold bending form. His complexion dark like the tamal tree, with a peacock adorning his hair. His dhoti golden like shining lightning. He had a beautiful smile upon his face as he played his flute, and he gazed upon Jhanavi Devi. And she saw in a circle around Krishna were the gopis, headed by Sri Radha, Sri Lalita, Sri Vishaka. Jhanavi Devi fell unconscious in ecstasy. In this way, she cooked. She served all the Brijavasis and all the devotees. And then she asked Raghunath Das Goswami's permission to see Govardhan Hill. This is interesting. Jhanavi Devi is the Acharya of the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya at the time. After Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda disappeared from this world, everyone unanimously accepted she's the senior most Acharya. She's Ananga Manjari, Srimati Radharani's younger sister in the spiritual world, and she's Nityananda's consort in this world. But yet, she was cooking, she was cleaning, and she was serving with great motherly love. She had no children of her own, but she considered everyone her child. She was like the mother of the universe. But even in such an exalted position, before going to Govardhan Hill, she asked for blessings. This is an example. Without blessings, what will we see? If we do not have blessings, we can't penetrate material energy. Even if we go to Vrindavan, even if we go to Govardhan, even if we go to do some incredible devotional service, to actually penetrate the material covering and actually enter into the real spiritual realm, blessings are required. And it's not just getting the blessing. It's the attitude in which we seek the blessings that makes our heart receptive. Because Vrindavan is Krishna's abode forever. It's Nitya Dham. Krishna's performing his eternal pastimes in Vrindavan 24 hours a day. There's the prakata and aprakata. On the transcendental platform, Krishna's always performing his Leela in Vrindavan. But premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, we have to have divine eyes to see it. And you can't make your eyes divine. Sometimes that verse from Brahma Samhita is, you have to have the mascara of prem on your eyes. But you can't go to, Pantaloons mall and buy prem mascara. They may sell something named prem mascara. You could probably find it somewhere in Mumbai. But you can't purchase that. It only comes by blessings. And it comes when our heart is really seeking blessings. When we feel ourselves unqualified without blessings. When we become beggars of blessings. And we're begging for the blessing to have the power to serve, to please the Vaishnavas, to please the Gurus, to please Krishna. That is the blessing we're asking for. So Janava Devi begged Raghunath Das Goswami for blessings to seek Govardhan, and he gave the blessings. And then she went to Govardhan Hill. And she performed the beautiful parikrama and had the darshan. Manasi Ganga, Govinda Kund, Haridev, Apsara Kund, Navala Kund, Dana Nivartana Kund, went to Punchari, Jatipuram, Uddhava Kund, Radha Kund, Shama Kund, Kusum Srovar, Sham Kutir, Gwala Pukar, all these different places. Then she returned to Vrindavan. And while in Vrindavan, she would go to the deities of the Goswamis, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath, Madan Mohan, Radha Vinod, and she would cook for them. Every day she would go to and she would cook a wonderful, wonderful feast and offer it to the deities. And then she would personally distribute it to the Goswamis, to the Brajavasis, to everyone. This was her nature. And there's that famous story where Gopinath appeared to her. She was at Gopinath's temple one day. And Gopinath, if you have been to Jaipur, you will see Gopinath's quite large size. I mean, Krishna, when he wants to be large, he could become Vishwarup, the universal form. But comparatively, Srimati Radharani was very small, not even at his waist hardly. So she's at the darshan in Vrindavan of Radha Gopinath temple. Madhu Pandit was there, serving her so nicely, and she was assisting him. And she was thinking in her mind, didn't say a word to anyone, that Radharani is too small for Gopinath. But then she was thinking, why am I thinking like this? If Radharani wants to be this size, who am I to say she's too small? So she didn't say anything. She was kind of feeling ashamed. And after the arati, she left, and Jiva Goswami arranged a place for her to rest. And while she was resting, Gopinath appeared in her dream and said, "What you were thinking is correct. Radharani is too small for me." And then Gopinath said, "Radharani, what is your opinion?" And then Radharani appeared to Janava Devi, and she said, "Yes, I am too small for Gopinath." So please go back to Bengal and make another deity of Radharani that is bigger size. So she was given an order. That means she had to leave Vrindavan. So she left. And oh, how she cried, leaving all the Goswamis and leaving the holy land of Braj Bhumi, and how all the devotees were weeping and crying that she was leaving them. And she went to Kardaha, her home. Well, first on the way, she went to Ekachakra and so many other places. And she visited Lord Nityananda's birthplace and had wonderful experiences. And I'll tell one more story because the ringings have already been resounding. As she left Ekachakra, having these historical moments of visions of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, visions of Hadai Pandit and Padmavati, her mother-in-law and father-in-law who she never saw before, visions of Nityananda Prabhu's loving pastimes and being reunited with him. But she knew she had to make this deity for Gopinath, and she had to get back to Kardaha, which is where she resided on the bank of Ganga. So as she was leaving, just a few kilometers out of Ekachakra, she saw something really strange. There was a Brahmin who was totally drunk on liquor, not Harinam. I mean, fermented liquor. He was really drunk, and he was acting like a total fool. He was like a madman. He was just making all these crazy sounds, and he was dancing. She saw Lord Nityananda. He was always drunk on the holy name, and he was making strange sounds and dancing too, but this is totally different. This man was degraded. For a Brahmin to be in this condition was such a degradation, especially in those days. These days, nobody even knows hardly who a Brahmin is. But, you have to kind of see the men, see if, when they're bathing, whether they have threads or not. But the behavior of people is very difficult. But in those days, you could, just by seeing the way a person behaved, you could understand if a person's actually a Brahmin. So this person was totally drunk and acting in such a humiliating, degrading way, and he didn't even know it. It was disgusting. That's the word. He was disgusting. So, most people, if they see somebody like that, they just become disgusted. But Janava Devi started to cry. She had so much compassion. Why does he have to be like this? And what she did when she saw him in that state, from the heart of her hearts, she prayed to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, please bestow your mercy upon this person. Help him, save him, bless him, shower your grace upon him. With tears of affection and compassion, she prayed so deeply for this man who was simply rude and disgusting. And this was exemplary. She didn't just think, I will deliver him. She prayed to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. When Srila Prabhupada was coming to America, we read in his prayers, he wasn't thinking, I will deliver these Malechas and Yavanas. He was praying, Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please, you deliver them. Give me your words to speak, to reach their hearts. Otherwise, there's no other way. This is the spirit of what we may call a preacher. Not that I'm better than you, that I'm just an instrument through my prayers of if Krishna, if Prabhupada choose to speak through me, only then can they be delivered. It's not about just what I know. It's about the sincerity in which I'm praying. That's when our knowledge is empowered with grace. So she prayed to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, please deliver this man. Where anybody else would have just seen him as a disgusting, fallen idiot, she was praying with compassion. And seeing this, then she told the devotees, go and tell him to chant the names of Krishna. And because of her prayers, his heart already had become receptive. And then he started chanting. And he became sober. And then he became intoxicated in a completely different way. And he became a great, great devotee. Instantly, practically. This was Janava Devi's nature. Her humility, her compassion. To be great, in a spiritual sense, means to feel great compassion, to serve those people who are very small. That's what makes you great. Not just to hang out with great people. If you're actually hanging out with great people, properly, hanging out is an American way of saying associating. It's the English translation of satsang. Yes? He's so patiently sitting. Thank you. If we actually are imbibing their spirit, then that is what greatness is. To feel, to care for people even in a lamentable situation. What to speak of devotees when they are attacked by Maya in a lamentable situation. It's easy to say they're disgusting, because literally they are. But what does that mean? You know, if you go to Bhaktivedanta Hospital, if somebody comes in with some disgusting disease, Dwarkadish could say, you are disgusting. It's true. You're telling the truth. But he's not. But that disgust brings about a more urgent need to help, to serve, to care, to save a person from that disgusting situation. That was our qualification. When Prabhupada was asked, what was our qualification to get Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy and Krishna consciousness? He said, you had no qualification. I made your qualification. Because from someone in Vrindavan to come to Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, is quite disgusting. But he saw, yes, these people are diseased. Let me give my life, my soul to heal them. That is the spirit of Jahnava-Devi. To be the servant of the servant of the servant. Once again, my very, very dear beloved friend Shamdas Ji, who was a resident of Govardhan Hill. In fact, whenever I'm in Vrindavan, I usually spend time at his house. And the roof of his house, you could practically reach over and touch Govardhan. And it's right where Srinathji's temple is, on the top of Govardhan Hill. Just his home it's actually, we were speaking of Vitaleshwar. He lives in a room on the roof of the house that was once Vitaleshwar's house, the son of Vallabhacharya. It's right under Srinathji's original temple. And such a friend, such a servant of the servant of the servant in everything he did. He loved to serve devotees. He served his little Srinathji Murti for many hours every day. And he spread kirtan in a very special way throughout the Western world. So he has passed away from this world. Certainly his beloved Radharani and Srinathji have blessed him in a very, very special way, his immortal soul. But we are left behind to feel his separation. So let us pray for him. Pray for Srinathji. He was so happy to see Srinathji in our temple. And Srimati Radharani Gopinath Gaurnitai. They may bless his immortal soul with their infinite love. And in his honor we will perform Nam Sankirtan. Thank you very much.